Hi, I'm Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell here at the Unity Center in San Diego. Thank you so much for watching today. If you'd like to support the work that we do here, please consider making a contribution. Go to our website. It's easy to do. Thank you in advance for that contribution. So gentleness, what is that, and how do we cultivate a more gentle spirit, a more, a more gentle nature? As I was looking over my notes yesterday, I was reminded of one of Aesop's fables. How many of you remember some of Aesop's fables? There was a fable attributed to him called The North Wind and the Sun. And the North Wind and the Sun were quarreling. Who was the stronger of the two? And as they were quarreling, they happened to notice a traveler walking down a path with a cloak, a coat, over his shoulders. And the Sun decided that the best way to determine who was the strongest was to see who could get the man to release that coat. And so the North Wind went first. And the North Wind blew a cold blast of air against the traveler. And the traveler started to shiver, and the traveler started to wrap that cloak around him tighter and tighter. The more the wind blew, the more the traveler did what? Wrapped himself in that cloak. And then the sun had its chance. And the sun started to beam ever so gently and ever so warmly on the traveler. And the chill from the north wind started to subside, and the traveler started to feel a little warm. And the sun shone brighter and brighter and brighter and warmer until the traveler became so hot that he needed to remove his cloak entirely. What force could not cause to happen, gentleness allowed to happen. Such a simple little story, right? But such a clear picture to us of the difference between going through our lives with this sense of forcefulness or this sense of gentleness. I was thinking about how in my own life, in those times when somebody has come at me with an idea or a request or a comment or an opinion with great force like the north wind, I responded exactly the way the traveler did. I just dug in deeper and held on tighter. Any of you relate to that? Right? But when that same person might come to me with the same information, but come to me with a sense of gentleness, a sense of connection, how I responded entirely differently. I think Paul is absolutely right in identifying gentleness as one of the qualities of the fruit of the Spirit. To me, gentleness has to do with how we do whatever it is we do. He identified as well the quality of kindness, which we looked at a couple of weeks back. You may recall that lesson. And kindness and gentleness, though similar, are not the same. Kindness to me has to do with the what we do, and gentleness has to do with how we do it. So I want to share some reminders and some pointers with us on cultivating this quality of gentleness. And the first one is this, that gentleness, though similar to kindness, is different in that gentleness involves cultivating a softness of heart toward other people. A softness of heart toward other people and toward ourselves. That gentleness is about a softness of heart toward others and toward ourselves. How many of you remember the situation in Jesus' life where he was teaching and the Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in the act, we're told, caught in the act of adultery, to test him to see what he would say should be done to her. Remember that story? Well, the Mosaic law under which the Pharisees operated was that a woman caught in the act of adultery, an adulteress, would be publicly stoned to death. I always, when I read that part,
in the gospel, caught in the very act. I want to know where he was. Right? But that was a different time. Not as different as it should be, but anyway. So the Pharisees were trying to trick him, right? He's in the middle of teaching and they're trying to trick him. And the most beautiful and gentle answer he gave, the answer he gave was, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. I remember the first time I was talking to my dad about some of these passages. My dad said, yeah, and then a stone threw by. And Jesus turned around and said, okay, Mom, knock it off. Jesus' response was a gentle response, for he could look at her and he could look at himself, and he invited everyone else to look at themselves through gentle eyes. For the truth is that we all err. We all have times that we rise to the highest that is in us, and we also have those times that we sink to kind of the lower point in us. So gentleness, though similar to kindness, is really about a softness of heart toward others, but also toward ourselves. I've been doing a little more counseling of late, and the people that I have been in a counseling situation with are dealing with some really, really tough situations. In two cases that I'm thinking of, one is physical illness and the other is emotional distraught. And both of them are very seasoned metaphysicians, very, very much in this teaching for many years. And one of the things that I've had to remind them of is that these teachings are not meant to beat us up over the head. That there are times when we're going through really difficult things in our lives that we can't just slap an affirmation on top. We can't just say, oh, it doesn't exist when it does exist. When we really are feeling the hurt or the fear or the worry and the concern, we're not going to dwell there, but we need to be gentle with ourselves as we move through it. Does that make sense? This idea of cultivating softness of heart toward other people is also very important to me culturally right now. I have long believed that one of the ways we are going to help create a more whole and healthy society is the way in which we raise our boys and our young men. We have got to help our boys and young men understand that cultivating a soft and tender heart does not make them weak. It is not a sign of weakness. Only those who are really strong inside of themselves, only those who are really confident in who and what they are as people, can show up in life with a softness of heart, a tenderness of heart toward others. And unless and until we raise a whole society that feels comfortable and skillful in these qualities, we're going to be continuing to create some of the very serious challenges that we are creating together today. A second on this idea of cultivating and deepening in our experience of gentleness is watching how we be in the world. Watching how we be in the world. It means watching the energy that we radiate, how we are vibrating in the world. Some people vibrate with an awful lot of anger. Have you noticed that? An awful lot of criticalness or a lot of edge or hostility. Some people seem to go through their lives as if everyone and everything in their path is an obstacle. Reminded of the quote from Emerson, "Who you are, what you do, speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying." Who you are, how you be, speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. To walk through life with a more gentle heart, I think, is also to walk through life with a beginner's heart. There's a term in the Japanese language, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, shoshin. Shoshin. Shoshin means beginner's mind, a beginner's mind. I ask us to ask ourselves, when was the last time that we approached our lives with a beginner's mind? With that openness of heart and openness of mind that recognizes there's still a lot for me to learn. Have you noticed that? And I'm not just asking you to take my inventory right now. I know I have a lot to learn, but I think we all have a lot to learn. And those who approach life with a beginner's mind, I think also tend to be more tender-hearted because they don't pretend to know what they don't know. They're not afraid of admitting what they don't know, and they're willing to be shown. They're willing to be taught. So watch how you be in the world. Watch your vibration. Watch your energy. The third is to practice speaking with a gentle tone. To practice speaking with a gentle tone. Another way of saying this is to put warmth in your voice. Say that with me. Put warmth in your voice. Put warmth in your voice. As I was thinking about this again last night, I realized, I believe this to be true, that we recognize tone before we recognize content. We recognize tone before we recognize content. What that means is how we speak, the tone in our voice, communicates so much of the nuance of feeling. Think about a baby. Baby doesn't know our language yet, or any language, right? But if you were to say with an angry voice or a loud voice, "I love you," how would the baby respond? Probably cry. Probably cry. Why? Are the words "I love you" words that typically make someone cry? No, but the tone carried a vibration and an energy. You could say to that same baby, "I hate you," with a soft and warm tone of voice, and how would the baby respond? They certainly wouldn't cry. Now, I'm not suggesting you do either of those things, but the point is that we communicate either a gentleness, an approachability, a safetiness about us by not just what we say, but by how we say it. And practicing by putting warmth in the tone of our voice is a very simple but very, very effective thing to do. Man, I remember so many times my mom saying when my brother and I were growing up before my sister was born, she would say, "Wendy, it's not what you say, it's how you say it." Proverbs said the same thing. He who guards his lips guards his life, but he who speaks rashly will come to ruin. If you haven't poked through the Proverbs any time recently, go through them. There's an awful lot of wisdom in there. The fourth is the idea of practicing embracing your gentle core. Practice embracing your gentle core. Say that with me, please. Practice embracing your gentle core. We all have a gentle core. We really do. We may, because of our life experiences, have built some armor around that gentle core. We may have experienced some betrayal, some hurt, some trauma, in which the only way we knew how to cope was to build up barriers or to put up a real hard front, I'm going to leave them first, or I'm going to attack them first, or I'm going to whatever it is, in a false attempt to protect ourselves. But wherever we have put up a wall, while it might seem that we can keep the hurt out, we also keep the love out. We also keep the joy out. We also keep all that is really good and beautiful about being human beings, spiritual beings having a human experience. We leave all that aside. Embracing our gentle core. What does that mean? How do we do that? It means we're aware of the energy that we are holding at any given moment. It means that we ask ourselves, am I coming into this conversation or into this experience, into this exchange, more like the north wind? Or am I coming like the sun? It's doing a personal check. It's why Jesus said, don't be so concerned about the speck that's in your brother's eye. Take care of the log in your own eye first. He was saying, check yourself. Check yourself. There is that gentle, tender core within all of us. It's to pay attention to the emotional wake we leave behind from the vibration or the energy that we put out. It's to practice pausing between stimulus and response, pausing before we act or react, catching our breaths and saying, wait a minute, what is a more gentle approach I can take here? Gentle does not mean that we're not strong. Gentle does not mean that we don't speak what maybe we really need to say, but it means that we care about how we say what we say. It means we care about the other. It means that we try to stay connected with the other. Proverbs says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Do you think that's true? It's still true today. It's still true today. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And this last is to be willing to watch for and correct any tendency toward mindless aggression. Think about that for a moment. We might not want to admit that we have any of that in ourselves, but I think some of us still might. Let me say it again. Be willing to watch for and correct any tendency toward mindless aggression. If you think that you are beyond any expression of mindless aggression, I want you to pay particular attention to the way you drive your car. I really think that one of the I think if Jesus were alive today, he might use a lot of examples about the way we drive our cars. You know, I remember, I think I shared this with you some time ago. I remember using for a period of time my driving as a way to test myself on just how patient or giving or generous of heart I might be and so forth, because I was catching myself always in a rush and always trying to get to wherever I was going as fast as I possibly could. And I love how these God thoughts pop in our minds. I'm sure they pop in your mind from time to time. They pop in mine. And I probably was driving a little mindlessly aggressively when all of a sudden I had the thought, what if the driver ahead of me, the one I'm trying so hard to get around because they're not driving the way I think they should be? Have you ever held that thought, right? That's usually what's behind our aggression. They're not driving the way I think they should be. And all of a sudden what plopped in my mind was, Wendy, how would you be feeling right now if you looked up and His Holiness the Dalai Lama was driving that car? It was such a beautiful God moment because everything shifted. I drove like an angel the rest of that week. So, be willing to watch for and correct any tendency toward mindless aggression. Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my favorite authors and teachers, will frequently talk about the idea of walking gently, And it can be a really good practice as well, to just see, can we walk gently as if we were trying to leave no imprint where we were? Is it about walking? No, it's not about walking. It's about bringing a mindfulness and a tenderness, a gentleness to the way that we be in the world. I don't believe that heaven is a distant place you get to if you were good in this place. I believe that we either co-create a heaven on earth experience for ourselves and others right here, or we don't. That this is where we are meant to do that work. This is where we have the opportunity to change what it means to be a human being. All of life is growing and evolving That's part of the arc of life itself. Every organism grows and evolves into higher expressions, more sophisticated, more complex expressions. And if they don't, what happens? They go extinct. They go extinct. You and I, in the cauldron of all that is happening in our world today, I believe are literally being invited as a species to evolve to the next iteration of what it means to be a human being. And that is to be more spiritually awake, not just to know the things that we come here to learn and to be reminded of, but to live more consistently and wholeheartedly from that awareness. And as we do, we're going to be rewiring our brains in the very process. You already know this because you've read articles about the power of the mind and what happens in the mind neurologically, in the brain neurologically, in people who meditate consistently for long periods of time. Their brain becomes hardwired in a different way. So the work that we do absolutely impacts our lives right here and right now. And to me, the beauty of it is we are also standing on the opportunity for it to have much longer, further reaching impact. So whether we're talking about the quality of gentleness or love or self-control or kindness or any of these fruits of the Spirit, they all deserve our willingness to practice a little better and to grow a little more in them. So be willing to watch for and correct any tendency that you might notice in yourself toward mindless aggression. And I want to close with this invitation. At the end of each day this week, ask yourself this question: how gently did I move through this day? Say it with me. How gently did I move through this day? Namaste.
Many people enjoy Reverend Wendy's talks and meditations and aren't able to attend the Unity Center in person. If you're part of our extended family from around the world and would like to help support the Unity Center, please go to our website or download our free app, which offers even more ways to connect with the Unity Center. Namaste.